Recording this now. So today we're going to kind of deal with a little bit of that plasma kind of art. I know I talked to you guys back at the beginning of the semester about it. I think I may have mentioned it last week as well. But we kind of showed you the handheld plasma, kind of the parts, the pieces and stuff like that last week. And so now we're going to kind of get into kind of the design, part of things. And this is where you guys are going to actually, you guys are actually have to do something other than just kind of watching me weld and kind of evaluating those different things and whatnot. You guys are actually going to be able to create something, with this stuff today. Kind of the assignment, let me just kind of pull up maybe the assignment. That might make more sense. That's not what I want. All right. You guys can see this, right? The CNC plasma wall art assignment. Hopefully.
Yes.
Yeah, we can see it.
So with this assignment, there's like a lot of different stuff that's, kind of, in here. And I'm just going to kind of skim through this stuff. One of the biggest things that we're going to use for this, and you are going to, have to download, but it is free. It doesn't cost anything, is an Inkscape program. It's called Inkscape. If you look online for it, you'll find it. It's a free kind of editing software of like pictures and different things like that. So it's completely free. You can do the same kind of stuff with AutoCAD. Some of the videos that I'm going to show you and the things that we're going to talk about is really going to deal with the Inkscape. It is a really good program for kind of editing images and doing that type of stuff. But AutoCAD will do the same stuff. That Inkscape will. I just feel like Inkscape's going to be a little bit better kind of avenue. And you'll see these videos, the videos that we have, and I'm going to show you today. I'm going to show you a couple of them. I'm not going to show you everyone, but just kind of the basics to kind of get you guys started with this. And then what we're going to do from there is you guys will kind of be able to design, kind of, your project, if you will. You'll be able to kind of design it, put it together. And then we're actually going to take this stuff and we're going to cut it on the plasma. And with that, you can either, have me cut it out, or you can actually schedule a time with me once we get the design stuff and all that stuff done. You can schedule a time with me to come to the shop and I will show you how to actually use that plasma cam. I can't have everybody here at once. That's why we have to schedule times, because I was told that I can have students pick up projects. So if you're picking up your project that isn't cut out yet, I can just show you how to cut it out. It doesn't take that long to really cut these things out. The tough part with this, like this CNC work, is really kind of setting down and getting your art kind of done and getting it set up the right way. And I'll show you some things in the video. It's going to show you some things, and I'm going to show you, kind of, something that we need to be kind of aware of. What you want to do is completely up to you. The size needs to be around 24 inches to 24, so like 2 feet by 2 feet. But there's some leeway there. If you've got something that maybe is a little bit longer, maybe it's like more of like an oval shape that you want to do, it's a little bit longer, but maybe skinny or something like that. That's fine. I can work with you guys, around that. We just kind of have the parameters kind of set up, so you kind of know about that size. But this could be something that you can either give to somebody, maybe as a Christmas gift if you want to do that. It could be something that maybe you want to make for yourself. Completely up to you what you want to do. I don't care what it is, but you guys are going to have kind of that freedom and flexibility to kind of do what you want. But you can really do a lot of cool things, on this stuff. How we work that program and how we do that is honestly pretty simple. And the videos lay it out. I have the videos in Canvas. They're in the week 12 page. So those videos are in there. You can look at those things individually. Like I said, I'm going to show you guys a couple of them. We'll talk about some of those things. That way we can get started on this. This stuff is not going to be due by next week. I think I'd put it due by the end of the month. If you, however, do get your work done, you got your artwork done, and you're like, hey, I'm completed with this stuff, and you want to come by and you want to cut this stuff out sooner than when it's due, you are more than welcome to do that. That way we don't get backed up. But by the end of the month is really when I want you guys to kind of have this thing done. So you've got some time to kind of learn. I'm not going to give you anything else this week to kind of focus on, but really working on this project here. The one thing in your designs that we don't want, obviously, anything racist, sexist, dehumanizing, no vulgar language. Typically when we're doing artwork, if we are selling something, we have to worry about like copyright laws and different things like that. But if you're making something and, let's say it's, a design, of like a company or something like the Nike symbol or things like that. We don't have to worry about, copyright laws because you're making this for yourself. You're doing that. You're not monetizing this. You're not selling this stuff. That's not an issue. I will say that, with Fresno State stuff, sometimes we do run into issues where we can't, we have to get approval and we have to pay royalty fees on different things, like if we do the Fresno State Bulldog and stuff like that. But if it's for you and you're a student, you guys have kind of the rights to use these things. And so we can do, some of that stuff if you want, but we can't give it away to anybody, and it's got to be used for your personal use. So if you want to do like a gift or something like that, we have to kind of keep the Fresno State stuff out of it. I don't want to get in trouble for that. And have to deal with all that stuff. But if it's something for you, those are some options that we can do. But otherwise, I mean, really the world is kind of, at your fingertips, and you can kind of do what you want. As far as the cutout stuff goes, if you want me to just cut it out, you don't want to come in or you can't come in because maybe you're far away, you can just send me, it's going to be called a DXF file, and we'll explain how we save that into that file. But you basically save it as a DXF file, and then you email that to me, and then I'll have that thing. I can then take that and I can put it into our program and we can cut it out. So either you can schedule it with me to come in, or I can just cut it out for you. And then if you're here, obviously, if you're here to, cut it out, you can pick it up. Otherwise, if you're not here, we can kind of arrange some times. I can hang on to them. If it's not this semester, it can be next semester. We can kind of figure out, how that stuff goes. There's a little rubric here, obviously, we want to try to be as creative as possible. I'm not looking for you guys to just put some words, on a piece of metal and then do that and be done. We kind of want a little bit more, added to that, because there's a lot of cool things that we can do with the CNC plasmas that, we can really make some things that, are going to be pretty neat. And so, think about something that maybe you would want, maybe it's your, your high school logo. We can do all that stuff. We're not going to get in trouble for any of those things. If you want to do something like that, or if you just want something, like I said, a gift for somebody, this might be a good opportunity to get something off of your list while also doing some classwork. But basically, that's what we're grading you guys on, is like, how creative are you? What things are you adding in? What are you doing with this stuff to kind of make it maybe a little bit more unique and trying that. If you do something and you're like, you know what, hey, I don't necessarily want to cut this thing out, but maybe you want something like I told you guys we have those little tattered flags that we've kind of created. We can cut that stuff out. There's a lot of work that goes into that. I still want you to create something, and I still want you to have something, whether we choose to cut it out or not versus maybe something else. That's going to be kind of up to you. But you may, if you put all this work into this stuff, it may be something that you actually want to cut out and actually have like a physical object of that, rather than just doing something that we already have. But some things would be like, here's some examples kind of down at the bottom, where we've got this little duck here. This one was like an image that was actually a picture that was taken. And then we actually turn that into, a nice kind of clean image here. And this thing can then, be taken into our plasma cam, and it can cut. You can add words, you can do different things. Like if you wanted like a sign like this, you can find images and you can find these signs, and then we can add in words. We can do different things from there. So you can put in and customize this stuff, and you can put in a name, if you're giving it to somebody or if it's just for you. There's a lot of different things that you can do to kind of, change this thing up and do some different stuff. So just kind of some examples of some of the things that we can do with this. What questions do you guys have right now? I'm going to take the silence as there are no questions.
I have a question.
All right, go ahead.
For like our design, are we designing it like on paper first and then on the computer, or?
No, I would just go with the computer, because if you wanted to sketch something, if you want to run something and you want to create something from scratch, you can absolutely do this with this program. If you want to, kind of find something that's kind of already in existence and maybe modify it and adjust it. That's typically what we do with a lot of things. And I'll show you kind of an example of some stuff with that. So if it makes it easier for you to do it on paper first to kind of get an idea, by all means, you are welcome to do that. But I'm not looking for any of that stuff. What I'm looking for is for you to kind of work with, design, and kind of create that image. And it's all got to be digital, because that's what we're going to take into our computer to actually have that CNC plasma actually cut out the image. So completely up
Okay,
to
thank you.
you. Any other questions? All right. I think kind of the first thing I told you guys, the little Inkscape program. This is the Inkscape program, that we're going to use. Again, it's a free download. There's some things here. There's a lot of different stuff in here, but I'm going to play a little video. You guys have access to this video, so you can rewatch this stuff as many times as you want. There's a couple things that I'll probably stop it to kind of emphasize maybe a little bit of difference, from what they say to maybe, what might make it a little bit easier for you. And so we'll go ahead and we'll kind of enlarge this thing, and, we'll kind of play this. This is made by the plasma table company that the plasma table that we own. So
in this series of videos, we're going to be discussing Inkscape vector drawing program. And this is the first in a series.
How is the volume for you guys?
It's good. We can hear it.
Okay, perfect.
Series, and the videos will go step by step, getting more and more complicated. This first video, we're going to focus on the very basics of this program. Now, these videos are focused on using Inkscape with the ArcLight Dynamics plasma cutting system. Inkscape has a lot of features, and there's a lot of options that the more you get into it, the better you're going to be at doing artwork and custom sign work. But Inkscape is a really key program for anyone who has one of our plasma cutters who really wants to get the full use out of it. So you can download Inkscape. It's open source. There's no license. You can get it straight off the internet, no cost. So first, let's pull in a file here.
Try to get that away so you guys can see.
So I have a couple images that I pulled off the internet. Generally, you're going to want to embed it. Oops.
So on here, he just grabbed some stuff, offline. He's going to show you some tips to kind of help you as you're grabbing some images, and I'll kind of, help you. I'm going to show you a little bit of difference too once he's done with it.
Now what we have in here is a pixel image. If I zoom in here, these are just pixels, okay? There are no lines around this object. So our first step is going to be to vectorize it. And what vectorizing is going to do is it's going to draw a line between the white and the black. And it's going to give this a shape that can be recognized by the computer. So to do that, all we have to do is select our image so it has the box around it. I'll zoom out some more so you can see a little better. So it's selected. And then go up to Path, and we're going to go down to Trace Bitmap. And then when bitmap, you can bring a JPEG, a bitmap, a GIF image, any type of pixel image into Inkscape, and you'll be able to do the same process. So once you get to here, we're going to be working with this brightness cutoff mode. That's the main mode you're going to be using when particularly working with black and white images, and that's what I recommend you start out with. You do have the ability to use color images, but it gets a little more complicated. You can use these other methods, edge detection, and picking up on the individual colors to do that. But initially, we're going to work with the brightness cutoff. So this
real quickly, I'm going to show you guys something with this. I'm going to kind of bring up my file here, and I'm just going to import an image And I've got a little bulldog image that I'm going to kind of pull up. You'll notice this one is kind of color here. We pull it up, we want to embed it. This stuff is pretty standard. Typically if I import an image, I just click OK. I don't mess with any of those things. We'll highlight that whole thing. Come on. Why aren't you moving for me? Really? You're not. Oh, I'm not on the selection tool. Okay, so be on the selection tool. Now I can move it. Big difference. Okay, so the one thing that he did that, I want to show you that's a little bit different. He went to the trace bitmap, so path and then trace bitmap. And you'll notice we get this little bulldog image up here. One thing that he doesn't have is this little live preview right here. If I don't do that live preview, as I make changes to these numbers, you can see how it kind of adds in things. See how if I go all the way up, it kind of blacks it out. But you can kind of see the image quality kind of changes a little bit, and that gets, more or less. The live preview is really good when you're editing these things because you can adjust these numbers to really kind of, change those things and fine tune what's going to work out well for you.
Threshold here, this is going to determine how sensitive the vectorizer is to the edge of the pixels. And basically, usually I find increasing it just a little bit tends to smooth the lines out and improve the quality of my vectors and minimize the number of nodes in my file, thereby making it easier for the plasma cutter to cut it. So I've raised my threshold. All I have to do is click OK. So now it's vectorized the image. And if I click on it, I can drag the vector image off to the side. Now, once I've done this, I no longer need this window open. I can close it. So let me zoom in here and show you the difference. Over here we have pixels. Over here we have vectors. Nice, smooth lines.
So the smooth lines are really kind of the key with doing these things. The first thing we pull an image, if you're finding something offline, a high quality image is kind of like the key to this. We don't want to be grabbing like thumbnails and things like that. If you're finding an image, make sure you kind of find the large image and then you pull that image in, because that's going to make this stuff a lot cleaner and a lot easier to work with.
And if I go over here and click on my Edit Paths tool, all the points will appear. So first off, before we go any further, we're going to get rid of the original. So I just click on the original. I can right click. I cut them out of there. So now I have basically lines around this object. And at this point, I'm ready to scale it and send it to SheetCam to cut out as a DXF file, as long as I don't have to make any modifications. Now, there's a few things that would need to be modified in this image. If you notice here, this antler is not attached. So that, basically what we're seeing here is the white is a cut and the black is going to be steel. So if I wanted that antler to be attached, I would have to connect it to the rest of it. And we'll get to that in just a second. But I want to talk real briefly about vectorizing one other aspect of it that is important to understand. So let me bring another file in here. So let me import another file in. Well, actually, I'm not gonna bring it in. I'm just gonna open it up. We're gonna look at it in a photo editor. So I want to talk about anti-aliased versus non-anti-aliased text, or not text necessarily, but pictures in general. And anti-aliased basically has a fuzzy edge on it. And what this does is it smooths out
I'm going to kind of skip by this. You guys can kind of watch it in its entirety if you want. Basically, what he's going to say in here is that if you notice kind of how it's kind of like black, then kind of gray, then like a lighter gray, and then white. When you go to vectorize images like this is a much better quality because you end up getting a smoother line because when the computer, when it does that vector to kind of create this and make this into a line, it's going to kind of see those things and it's going to make that line kind of smooth versus something that's like this, where it's really rigid, where it's like black, right? And then it's white. What's going to happen is it's going to create a line here, a line there, a line over, line down. You're going to see a bunch of jagged lines in there. Plasma's not cut out very well with that kind of stuff. So you want something like if you zoom in, you want something that's pixelated, that's kind of fuzzy, that you can see kind of that, almost kind of like a shadowing, I guess, kind of on the outside of that. So when you're looking for images, and you're doing that, this type of image right here, although you may think that that doesn't look clean, it's going to vectorize a lot better than an image like this, right? If you're zooming in. So that's true of lettering, that's true of the words and all that kind of stuff. We'll just skip by all that stuff since that's pretty much what he's saying. I'm just giving you the Cliff Notes version.
So just a little tip to watch out for. So just as a side note, I mentioned finding these images. You know, where do you go to find these images that I'm working with? I can type in basically anything I'm looking for. Oops, I don't know if I spell it right. But basically type in anything and then go to images. And then you're going to modify your search tools. And you're going to set the type to clip art.
You don't necessarily have to do this, but this is going to give you good quality images. That's going to transfer into this program and make life a lot easier for you and a lot less work later on.
And then you're going to set your color to black and white. And this is going to give me nice, solid black and white images that are very easy for me to vectorize. Now, generally, the higher the resolution, the better. And so sometimes I will set this size to medium or large so I can kind of rule out the low resolution images from the get-go. You know, but any images like here, this one, for instance, this one, any of these, they're going to be very easy for you to cut out. Now, anything that's grayed like this is not going to cut out. It's not going to vectorize well. You need solid black, solid white in order for this to work well. And as a side note, you know, whatever images you choose to work with, please make sure you have the rights to reproduce them if you're going to be selling them. There are many sites online that will sell images.
We're just going to skip by that.
So let me get back over to Inkscape here. So basically, at this point, if I zoom in on this guy, he's got points around him. Now, all those points can be modified and adjusted. There's all these tools up here. There's all kinds of ways to manipulate. I can just grab this thing and move it, adjust it. And we're going to go into some more details on this in later videos. But for right now, I'm just going to show you, his main focus of this video is just vectorizing. So, and I want people to take it one step at a time. So once your image is vectorized, your last step is going to be to scale it. So with this selected up here, your select and transfer objects tool, or your arrow, you can click on your image and select it. Shows the bounding box. Okay, I can, you know, of course, as normal, move this around. You know, you have the ability to copy it. You can make 2 of them if you want. And then you can, of course, you know, modify it, scale it. Currently, you know, the way we're scaling right now is it's not locked. Okay, so I can kind of distort the shape of it. Okay, so let me undo that for just a second and go back. Up here are your scale bars. Okay, Right now they're set to pixels. We're going to want to change that to inches. Okay.
This is important for you guys to
And then we're going to lock our scales together so that when they scale, they don't distort the image. So let's just say I wanted to put this on my wall. You know, I'm going to make it, let's say 15 inches wide. So now we're 15 inches by 24 inches. That would be a good size piece. Okay. So if all I wanted to do is cut this out the way it is, I'm done. I got it scaled. It's ready to go. My final step is going to be to go to File, Save As, and we're going to.
So when you do get done with your stuff, it's important that when you go to save your file, that you save it as a DXF. And he's going to show you this right now. But that's important because that's what our computer program is going to actually take. If we don't get that DXF file, it's not going to work. In Inkscape, once you download it, you'll get the DXF file. You'll have access to save it as a DXF file.
We're going to save it as a DXF file, R14 DXF file. Now, when you save it, you're going to use the LW polyline output, which will be the default option checked here. And you're going to have to change your base units to inches, provided you're using inches, of course. And then click OK. And it's going to save the image for you. And that image you're going to be able to open up in Inkscape. Or, I'm sorry, SheetCam.
I'm not going to show you guys a SheetCam. The SheetCam is what we have on our computer right before the plasma. And it'll basically just pull that stuff.
So watch the subsequent videos to learn. We're going to be addressing how do you.
I'm going to show you one other one. I might try to skim through that maybe a little bit quick as well. But there's a whole bunch you can see that I put in there that you can kind of really, look at a lot of different things. But there's one thing that we're really going to want to kind of deal with. And maybe what I'll do is I'll do a vectorize on this one real quick. If you notice, if I kick these numbers up, you notice how that shirt becomes solid. He said that you can do, like, black and white images are easy, but on this one, even though there's some color, notice how the colors are really crisp. They're really clear. There's not like a variance in like the colors where there's like different shades of red that are kind of within that shirt. It's like one solid color. These images are going to be really, really easy to kind of, go through, but I don't want that red to kind of show up. And so I'm just kind of back this thing off until that image looks pretty clear. It's not really pixelated. And then once I'm good, I can hit enter or hit OK. It's going to vectorize this thing for me. Again, we do that by going to path and to trace bitmap. So whenever you pull an image in, that's what you need to do. And you'll notice if I pull this thing to the side, I've got my bulldog that's vectorized, and I've got my one that's not. We're going to want to delete these things. Now, one of the tough things with this, and this is where you're probably going to have the most struggle, besides just kind of maybe like learning the programming and stuff. And although there's a lot of different tools, there's a lot of different things that you can do with this stuff. There's some of it that you're really probably not going to touch. But what people really kind of mess up with and what they don't really recognize is an image like this. If I go and I create these lines, and you can see, all these little plot points that are here. You can see the little, F right here. You can see an outline of the F. And that all has to do with, the image of that bulldog and the colors and the different things that we have in here. Now, the problem with this, and the problem with how this thing is set up right now, if you notice the bulldog's arm or his leg right here, if you notice, this thing is going to have a path, and it's going to be a path that is going to be basically a circular path. It's going to go all the way around. And if I were to cut this thing, if I were to just leave this image exactly as it is, what I'm going to end up with is a leg that's going to be separated from his shoulder, an F that's going to be cut out like 3 times, another leg that's going to be cut off right here, right? The bulldog's face is going to be all messed up. You're not going to have stuff that's together. And so one of the biggest things that you need to kind of really focus on when you're designing these things is where your negative space is at, which is the space that's going to drop out, and like your positive space or the stuff that's going to, maintain or be in metal. And sometimes what we have to do is like break these lines up, and we've got to make sure that, maybe we cut a line like in the bulldog's arm right here, or maybe we cut this thing here and we cut it there. and then maybe we cut it right here and we join those pieces together to where maybe there's just a line that runs across, but it's not solid all the way through. So it doesn't run from this end to that end, but that line is still going to give you that kind of, that visual of, okay, this is his sleeve there, but it's not going to completely cut this leg off on that bulldog. Does that make sense? Kind of what I'm talking about there? Yay or nay?
It does. Can you show us an example of how you would do that though?
Yeah.
Like how you would cut off the sleeve like that?
So that's let me see here. Oh, what am I doing here? So there's a couple things that's on this program, that we can make life a little bit easier. And you notice right here, we've got like a pretty bold, kind of bulldog. We've got a lot of different points that's going on in here. And I think maybe I'll just try to sum up. The next video kind of explains this as well. It's a little bit different, than what we would do on this bulldog. But if you go down here to this very bottom, you see where it's got fill and stroke. We got to make sure we select our image. All right. Notice how the fill is black. Notice how the stroke is unset. If I click on this, I get this little toolbox on the side here, and I've got fill and I've got stroke. And on here, what I want to do is it's, the stroke right now is kind of on an X, so it's like not showing me like the outline. So I want to make sure I do this, and, I'm not going to pick the color. It's just going to default to black, right? And that's going to be fine. That's what we want. And we want to get rid of all that fill that's going to be on the inside. And so what we're going to do on this fill right here is we're just going to click this X. And you're going to notice see how it kind of creates a lot of lines here with this bulldog. There are, some things that we can do. There's a lot of different images, and you can't really click on things. Notice how I can kind of, click on it, but it grabs the whole bulldog here. To kind of edit these things. And you saw like in that last one where he could kind of click on it and he could kind of move this stuff, right? We can kind of mess with the bulldog's shoulder. These are kind of curved lines. So sometimes we can kind of, mess with these lines. We can adjust these things up. If I do something, you guys know, you can go up to file or edit and undo, or like normal things, Google and Word and all that. Control Z will undo, things that you did. So if you make a mistake on here when you're messing with these things, Control Z is just a really quick way to do this. As far as navigation goes, you see him kind of constantly going into this zoom function. But an easier way to zoom is to hold Control, and then if you've got a mouse, just use that little roller ball on that mouse to kind of zoom in and out. That's going to make life a little bit easier for you. So again, we go down to this fill and stroke. We take the fill off. We make that stroke a black line. If you were to take this, notice how it looks like my image is gone. It's still there. I just don't have the outline of those images. And the outline is typically the easier way to kind of deal with stuff. Because this image is so like it's filled up with a lot of different things here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this image and I'm going to go to path, and I'm going to break these things apart. And what that's going to do is it's going to make every one of these, notice how I got all these little boxes now that kind of popped up here. It's going to make all these different boxes, one image. But the nice thing is, like with this one right here, I could select this image. And if I'm like, look, I want this outline of this bulldog, but I don't need this inner line right here to be cut out, because on an image, that's not really what I'm looking for. I'm going to grab something real quick. Can you guys see my camera? You guys have my camera up by any chance?
Yes.
Yeah, we can see that.
Okay, so you see this little bulldog. This is one that we did on the laser. And you'll notice that we don't have on this bulldog, this outer line is really kind of this outer portion right here, right? And that kind of traces it. You probably aren't going to have to mess with anything on like this image with that outer line. And so we've broken these things apart. We've broken them up into their individual pieces. I can select this, and it's this whole leg. And theoretically, what I could do is be like, hey, you know what? I don't want this leg. I could sit there. Let me select this leg here. I should be able to delete it. Maybe it's not going to work there. We'll go cut. So right hand and cut. Notice how it cleans it up, but I'm missing some things. Like on here, I'm missing kind of these little creases and the different things, that are in his leg, like the toes, that would go right there. And so what I may want to do on here is, instead of having these things, I may just end up creating a line by itself. And so there's a couple different ways that we can kind of do this. But this one right here, let me see. We could draw freehand lines where we can basically just kind of click it and we can kind of trace that. You notice that's kind of funky. It's not really that great. But we can also do these little Bezier curves and straight lines. And so we could take these things and we can kind of click and kind of find this image. And if I just quickly click and I'm not holding onto my mouse, it's kind of drawing a straight line. And you'll notice this thing kind of, if I hit, right click, it kind of gets out. And I'm kind of traced that, that kind of angle there, but I'm straight lines. I don't really want those. I want that to be like a nice curve, kind of like you can hopefully kind of see in this foot on this little wood piece that we did. We want that to kind of follow that line and make life, a little bit easier. And so what we're going to do is go back to this little line curve right here. And if we click it and we hold it, we should, let me see, zoom in a little bit more to make life a little bit easier so we can see it. So if I click and hold it, I can kind of go up and kind of follow this curve and notice how it kind of like, it'll start to kind of curve around. And sometimes you got to play with these things. Like I'm probably going up a little bit too high. Notice how that curve is like a little bit low. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try this again. I'm gonna kind of click it right here. I'm gonna go maybe right to here. And I'm holding this as I'm doing it. Now I've got another one. I'm screwing this thing up here for you guys. So each one kind of affects, the other one. So now I can kind of take this one. I can kind of create that image. I'm going to right click to get out of there. And now I've got these little nodes that I should be able to just kind of create, and I can kind of put these things together. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to mess with my nodes now. And we should be able to see how we can kind of stretch these things. We can kind of, put these things together. We can kind of mess with these curves a little bit. We can kind of flex these things once we get that line drawn. I probably had too many of them. I kind of want this to be one line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try this again. We'll go back to this bezel curve. We're going to click and hold it. We're going to go to here. And we'll click one more time. So now we've got a full length thing right there. I'm going to take this, my selection tool here. And I'm going to get rid of this image. I would want to do another one here, but I'm just going to kind of show you guys. We'll just go ahead and cut that out. So on these things, we can go to our node points here. And that's where we can kind of mess with these and we can kind of adjust this curve and we can get that up. Sometimes if that stuff's there, it might make it a little bit easier, but you can see we've got some things that are kind of getting in the way. But we can kind of adjust these things down. We can kind of play with that a little bit. We can get that curve. And that looks like it kind of follows that one line. Notice this is kind of like an outline, right? But if we do that same thing, we can then take, and if we want like the crease right here, we can do that same thing. We can grab this little bezel curve. We can grab it right here. And let's just click that right there. Nope, that's not what I want to do. One thing we don't want to have happen is these lines to kind of overcross each other, like you can see right here. So we're going to grab these node points and we're going to try to mess with these node points here a little bit. I've kind of really screwed this stuff up right here. The nice thing with these things, and like, let's say like this point right here, let's say like I don't want this thing to kind of curve back. I can right click and I can click, oh, I shouldn't do that. I didn't have a complete circle, so that's why. If you have a complete circle, it'll kind of change things a little bit. Maybe I'll show you guys that in a second here. So we'll try to just draw this thing, We'll kind of grab it. Here I don't have those points. I didn't hold it down. What is going on with this thing? Let's do like that. There we go. Get the general idea, the general shape. Grab this point, we'll move that back. These things don't have to line up perfectly. It really kind of depends on your image, what you're looking for, and what you want. But if we were to kind of take that thing and we were to select, go back to my little arrow here. If we were to select this, we're going to go ahead and we'll just delete that stuff out. You can see how we're going to start get kind of some of those detailed lines there. But, and it's going to give us the emphasis of these toes, but it's not going to drop this metal out. Like this is just going to make a nice straight line cut. On these toes here, you could see that we've got a complete circle. It's going to drop those toenails out. That's going to be kind of your negative space, right? And this is going to be your metal space. But right here, you're going to get those details by kind of drawing those lines, kind of adding those things together. And it makes life, you know, a little bit easier. On these things here, let's go to here. So on here, we're not going to want this complete circle to drop out. We may want this V to drop out. And so we can select this box that we have right here. We can simply delete that. So we're kind of getting rid of some of these images here, making life a little bit easier. I might do the same thing on my Fs, right? If I get rid of those outer two, that F is going to drop out, right? And that's okay because we want this shirt to kind of be the metal still. And it really depends on your design. It depends on what you're looking for, what we want. Now, one thing we want to try to do is, I think it's a cut path. So on here, let's see if we can get these things to divide here. There is a way that we can do this. Oh my gosh. Let's see if we can try this. All these different programs are all the same. Oh, maybe it's this one here. Break apart. No, come on. I don't think the end group is where I want to do. I'm trying to cut this line. And for some reason, it does not want to cut for me. I'm gonna have to look at this thing and I'm gonna have to figure out how we would cut that. And I'll kind of show you guys those things. There may be some stuff in these videos too later on. There are some different things. I'm gonna kind of show you this stuff real quick. And then I think I'm probably just gonna let you guys kind of go at it on this second video right here. So you notice how I was kind of cutting some things out. He's gonna use this a little bit differently
In the last video, we
kind of zoom ahead here.
draw Bezier curves tool.
So on here, he's going to use, you notice how this one's kind of like the full space right here. He's going to use that little curve tool to draw some straight lines. I've already kind of shown you guys this stuff there.
What I can do, let me zoom in here on this tine a little bit closer.
And notice
Let's
control
say I want to make a nice
with the roller
flowing
ball works a little bit
connection for
easier.
this. Okay. With my curve tool, I can draw a nice kind of a smooth curve here.
He's drawing a line. I don't know if you can see this right
that
here.
matches up
Do this and connect these points together.
with this one right here. And I'm not too concerned. I'm overlaying here. And one of the things that's making it a little bit harder for you to see is, and I want to talk currently.
You'll notice how he has lines right there on this thing. This one's like that solid. This is where we go into that fill and stroke there. So you notice kind of what he drew right here. He just kind of drew a little box. And then what he did was he selected that box right there.
Sometimes this outline is a little easier for you to work with. Okay, it's going to show what's going to happen here a little bit better. Okay, so let me close that for a second. So I've drawn a curve here, as you can see. Now these curves are overlapping each other still. I haven't connected these yet. If I save this as a DXF, SheetCam will see all these curves and it will try to cut all of these curves. So it'll be a big mess here, okay? So in order to join these together, I can select my curve that I drew. I'm gonna hold down the shift button. I'm just gonna click on the rest of the object or the deer head. So the whole thing is selected, or I could have drawn a box around the entire image. Both would have been selected. With them both selected, I can go up under Path and go down to Union, and that's going to join these two together. And voila, simple as that, I've connected that tine to the rest of the antlers. Okay? So that's one.
So you see how he, kind of connected those things, just by doing that union and connecting those parts, together. I'm gonna have to look into that because I'm drawing a blank right now on how we, cut these things apart to cut those lines and stuff. But essentially, you guys kind of get the idea. There's a lot of like tedious stuff that goes along with this, and the tougher the image, like you look at that bulldog and all those things. There's a lot of work that goes into it, to kind of get these things to kind of function and do, what we want them to do, to be able to get them to work. And you really have to be kind of cautious of that negative space, the positive space. The other stuff that he talks about, like in this video, and you guys can watch this in its entirety. I don't want to sit here and have you watch this stuff. This guy, he can be a little bit dry, but there's really a lot of good information that he does. But one of the things that he kind of talks about in here too is, the spacings and the gaps and like, how much metal is going to be, from this point to this point. If this is all going to be metal here, how much metal is in here? And so we've kind of taken those node points and kind of moving away or deleting those things to where it kind of cleans up that image, a little bit, where we have a little bit thicker piece of metal. Because one thing that will happen on this metal is if we make this cut on this image, it looks like it's connected. But if that piece of metal is only like a 1/16 of an inch thick, this whole like antler portion could just break off and then it's going to be gone. And so we got to make sure that that metal is thick enough to be able to kind of work with these things and be able to kind of do that kind of stuff.
One way.
Do you guys have enough information to kind of get started on this stuff? Do you guys have enough that maybe we can, start grabbing some images? Maybe we can start, kind of messing around with it, thinking about what you want. Again, this stuff is not due, by next week. And I think what I may do is kind of, come back with next week, and I might show you guys a little bit more stuff, with this. We've got, a couple of things we want to show with welding, but I really kind of want to put a little bit of a focus on this stuff here, right now. And so, yeah, so if you guys have any questions right now, we can do that. Otherwise, maybe we can kind of start thinking about some of these projects. We can kind of download the Inkscape, kind of start, trying to vectorize an image, try to, get these things kind of solidified and maybe messing with, some of these parts and pieces to where we can, modify it and get it to where it'll be a good, clean image. Any questions? All right, I'm going to go ahead and